Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and this is my review of Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman, which I thought was called The Gentleman until I just went to go find the thumbnail right now. So I saw this movie yesterday, and I really need you to explain it to me. So I'm kind of a fan of Guy Ritchie. I like some of his. I've actually never seen Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, but I've seen stuff like Revolver and some of his other, London crime movies. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is, I don't know, probably in my top two, maybe two or three favorite movies. That King Arthur movie was actually, that was dog shit. Just awful, awful. Oh man, and just every part of that just stunk on ice. So he's coming out with a movie, and I'm at least interested in hearing about it. And a whole bunch of people are saying, actually, there was a good amount of interest. Is like, oh, are you going to review it? And I was like, have you seen it? And I was like, no, I'm curious. So Guy Ritchie is, is he a cult, hit? Kind of. I don't know. I think most people have a positive view of him. If you know who he is, and if you don't know, that's also just super normal as well. So what is The Gentleman? It's Guy Ritchie and Matthew McConaughey using Tweed to disguise you from the fact that they made a weed comedy. Yeah. So the most disappointing thing about this is it's all about weed. It centers around, it's just a weed comedy. You can church it up 6 ways from Sunday, but it's a weed comedy. So Matthew McConaughey plays the gentleman. He's an American who he was a Rhodes Scholar, went to Oxford, got into dealing drugs, and it's 30 years later, and he's spoilers. Now here's where I decide if this is even a recommend or not. Guy Ritchie's movies, they're so there are obviously similarities to him, but I mean, you look at stuff like his last 3 movies and it's just completely schizophrenic. Does a Tweed based, it's a Tweed weed comedy. Boom, video title. Does a Tweed weed comedy with a little bit of action and a lot of indecipherable UK accents appeal to you? Do you like watching a movie where half the time you're just like, does moisturizer exist in England? Does it? I guess since you don't have a lot of sun, you don't really... But these are actors who leave, so there's a lot of sun damage. I was just looking at Hugh Grant. It's like, moisturize, please. You've got wrinkles on the side of your face. The side of your face doesn't even really move. How do you have wrinkles there? But anyway, so what it is, spoilers. Okay. See it or not? I don't know. So it's about Matthew McConaughey trying to retire from the weed business because he's kind of become the landed gentry. There's a very interesting subplot where he produces incredible volume. So he kind of owns the UK weed market, and no one can figure it out, And then what happens is that he's gone to all these people, with some sort of title, but not the, they weren't taking over land in other countries. So basically, descendants of royalty or, I don't know all this, barons and stuff like that, lords and dukes, where they have these manors and these estates that are very expensive, but you can't quite pay it all off if you're just growing alfalfa or something like that. So he basically goes to these people who really want to maintain their lifestyle, and he gives them about $1 million in cash, obviously tax-free. Do you think they say tax-free? When you're taking money from a drug dealer, they're like, oh, this is tax-free? Or is it just implied that it's tax-free? It's tax-free. So it lets them stay in the status. It would be very embarrassing to have to sell your manor or your estate or whatever. So he's got a business that's valued at $400 million. So then Matthew Good, which is weird because Matthew Good is a Brit, but he's also supposed to play an American, even though his I guess I guess his American accent is okay. It's just his face is so British. I just feel like it's a British guy doing a good American accent. It never comes off. There's some people whose faces are so British. I always say this about the new Spider-Man. Like, his face is so British. I do not believe him as an American, ever. I would believe him as an American citizen, a British, person who moved over here and got American citizenship. But I don't, my grandparents are from Queen. No, they're not. No, they're not. So Matthew Good is wanting to buy, but through a complex series of shenanigans, he's trying to devalue Matthew McConaughey's empire so he can buy it for, almost kind of like 130 million. But what it ends up being is this just kind of interesting mix of a bunch of Guy Ritchie scenes. I almost describe it as, imagine if they let Guy Ritchie direct an entire episode of Saturday Night Live. And he did all these skits of like 3 to 5 minutes, but then he also kind of tied them together into a movie, that goes out of order and stuff like that. So it's like, it's fine. It's essentially a bunch of Guy Ritchie webisodes. Every scene by itself works fine, especially the stuff with Hugh Grant. I gotta say, I was just making the point about the the moisturizer, but there is this thing that I notice with classically handsome actors, is that if they're too silver screen looking, they get like certain roles and you can tell their frustration. I contend that Stephen Amell is an amazing actor. I've seen him especially in season 1. There were some truly great scenes. My favorite scene is at one point he's coming back and they're having a dinner, and he's been gone for 5 years, and his sister's a teenager, so she's kind of abrupt, she's kind of callous, and she's just like, so you were stuck on an island for 5 years. What was that like? And the line in the script is simply the word cold. And the way he says that, and it's so deep. It's just the word cold. It could have been a sarcastic comeback. It's like, so what was it like on an island? He's like, it was cold, But the way he does it is really deep and meaningful. But there seems to be almost this joy when they get older and they start to look older. They're like, oh, I don't have to be the leading man anymore. So he gets to be like this really sleazy, smarmy journalist who, that's redundant, who is blackmailing not Charlie Hunnam. Is that Charlie Hunnam? Is it? I think it is. It's either Charlie Hunnam or a guy who I confuse for Charlie Hunnam. Is trying to blackmail him, or he's trying to blackmail McConaughey, but he's going to his major domo, his consigliere. Like I said, it's I don't know. There are a lot of okay, for being a comedy, people did not laugh a lot. I would say it is amusing more that it is funny. There were some good surprises. For some reason, I thought, and again, this kind of goes into Colin Farrell, although he's not really looking that bad, but he's always, in his 40s right now. So all these guys seem to really like not being leading men anymore. So in the trailer, it makes it look like that Colin Farrell is some wimpy nebbish or something like that. But no, he's actually this really interesting character. He's basically like a good-hearted, artful dodger. He lives in a bad neighborhood. If some little punk teens kind of step to him, he'll embarrass them, but then say hey, come to my gym and I'll actually teach you how to fight. Now, kind of predictably, when you teach hoodlums how to fight, they just become better fighting hoodlums. But they're not actually that. There's this gang, I think they're called the Jugglers or something, but they don't juggle. It's actually this really funny subplot where they do YouTube videos of them doing robberies, and then they'll intercut that with doing some rap. It actually works. It sounds stupid, but it actually works quite well. Colin Farrell keeps he's like a dad, and he's so frustrated. He's like these hoodlums I taught to fight keep committing crimes. But at one point he kind of has to help him out, and he's like I'm just trying to teach them to be good lads. But it's not actually treated as a joke. It's actually this kind of really nice touching character bit. So there's some interesting characters. There's some good twists. I gotta say, one thing about movies is, and I'm a big fan of the Modesty Blaise novels that were written mainly in the 60s and 70s, is I always used to dream about them being, made into movies. And I said, you got to set them in the 60s or 70s, because once it became remotely affordable to have security cameras everywhere, none of those Modesty Blaise escapes work anymore. All of them revolve around the guards checking in on them every 3 hours or so. But this plot makes no sense in modern England that has the CCTV cameras everywhere. At one point, these other group of hoodlums have some video footage on their phones about one of the crimes, so they chase them down. I'm like, dude, you're in a council estate building. There are CCTV cameras everywhere. You need to have one line of dialogue that say, oh, it's a really bad neighborhood. The punks there, they destroy every camera as soon as it's installed. But no, I go, yeah, CCTV's got all of this. I mean, they're running down multiple blocks. If you follow any kind of crime story in the UK from the last 10 years, it's just, okay, this camera on this block, and then the person runs around the corner. They got another camera for that. They get freaking everything. If I was a criminal in the UK, when I was running from a crime, I would just run straight to the police. He's like, yeah, I'm that chap right there in the runners. I'm that chap. That's me. I'm turning myself in for the reward. That's a really bad English accent, but anyway. So if you like Guy Ritchie, I'd say there's a 3/5 chance you're gonna like this, maybe 2/5. I don't know. But it was one of those movies where at the beginning I was kind of like, maybe I should have read even one review of this before deciding to see it. But by the end, I was quite happy with it. I'm still a little confused on who was on what side, or if there's, it's like the whole Seinfeld. Oh, he's with them. Oh, I didn't, you know what I mean? And I went to the bathroom once, so it might have all been explained in that bit. There's actually a funny bit in there where they have some footage where you can hear everything the person says except for one bit, and then they later show that one bit, and the person basically says, ignore everything I just said. This is what we're really going to do. So that was a funny bit. So that's maybe kind of what happened to me. But overall, it's a good movie. It's a solid movie. It's a very, very particular movie. I think you're either going to like this or you're going to probably hate it. So anyway, thanks for watching. I don't do that on this channel. I'm watching Tron Legacy. I'll probably review that one tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.